Tyleik Williams kind of put himself on the map last year, in part because he was able to play so deep into games for Ohio State as a defensive tackle in a way he never had before, and how that sort of changed the dynamic up front. We talked to Tyleik today here after the second day of Ohio State spring practice, and Nathan Baird from cleveland.com, along with Stephen Means and Andrew Gillis. And, he was joking around on social media, saw the thing the other day where he was saying 60 stamina on the new EA Sports game that's coming out this summer, and at the same time, when you actually get serious about it, and you're like, hey, you might have to play, if you guys want to win this whole thing, it's going to be like 17 games. It's going to be a longer season than what you've ever had to play before. He sort of changed his tune a little bit, or it was maybe just a little bit more pragmatic about it.
Just realistic about things, right? I asked him, flat out, hey, you played a lot of snaps last year. I even admitted, more than maybe anybody thought you were going to play. He was playing north of 50 snaps in a lot of games last year. You might play 17 football games this year. Can that hold up? And no, it can't. The young guys have to come along. We can't play 50 snaps a game. That was the exact quote he used. We can't play 50 snaps a game. And I said, do you like that, though? Do you like playing that much? He said, yeah, in the big games, the Notre Dame game, Team Up North game, Penn State game. So that makes sense. When they play Oregon, Tyleik Williams is probably going to play north of 50 snaps. When they play Penn State, probably. Michigan, we'll see where Michigan is in 12 months, man. But the other 9 games on the schedule, if they're up by a lot, he even said this, I want to get out of there. Let those young guys go. Let them go. I'm not joking. I can't go that long. 60 stamina was not just a joke. That was real. That's a guy who's had some physical development and stamina and endurance problems his entire time here. So if he can save 15 snaps against Akron or against Michigan State or a team because you're up by 3 touchdowns, that might show up in the playoff because he's got that much more energy because he put it all, because he didn't have to play those extra 15 snaps. So I do think if we're looking for potential holes in this defense, I think right now Jason Moore, Hero Kanu, Caden McDonald, Tywan Malone behind Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton need to come along so they have enough depth on that interior to get them through 17 games.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I still think a game like Akron, he wasn't going to play 60 snaps in that game anyway. I do think, though, that we probably have not talked enough about how crucial defensive tackle depth and building that defensive tackle depth is going to be and how big this spring is for that. We saw, last year, Hero Kanu really started to kind of come along down the stretch. Jim Knowles was talking today how much he flashed in the second half of the year. Cade McDonald had his moments. Jason Moore going to be in his second year coming along. We still don't really know what's going on with Tywan Malone, because he just wasn't a big part of what they did last year, and he's somebody that we're definitely trying to get a better read on this spring. But how critical do you look at it, Andrew, and say that finding that third, fourth guy on the defensive tackle group that you can rely on is potentially one of the things that's going to decide whether this defense lives up to expectations?
Well, it's really big because we can talk about the Akron game and those type of games and being like, oh, well, when they're up 100, they can empty the bench. But if you can find a series in the second quarter and get Tyleik off his feet, and, hey, let's say that series ends up being 5 plays. All right, 5 plays is, you're thinking, what is 5 plays? You do that 12 times, you're talking 60 snaps over a course of a regular season. That's a full game that he played last year that he's just taking off his feet. So it's not just, hey, when it's a blowout, really get these guys out of there. It's finding guys that can play in a 17-3 Michigan State game for a series in the second quarter, and you don't feel, bad about sending out Hero Kanu and McDonald for that. You don't feel bad about sending Tywan Malone out there for that. You don't feel bad about sending Jason Moore. There are guys that you need to find that you can just have a baseline level of confidence in because, one, you can develop those players because Ohio State's defensive line, they're going to have some turnover here in the next, 12 months. So you're going to need to develop some of these guys, but you also need to find just series and plays in the middle of these games, because in the middle of these games is really where you can make up some ground. Because if you're just going to rely on, hey, we're going to beat teams to sleep and then we're going to get these guys out of there, I don't know if that's the best course of action. I think you got to find them kind of in the first half, find a series here, find a series there, and over time that's going to add up and that's going to make a big deal. I wonder about them getting creative too. We mentioned the double eagle stuff with Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. if you want to get your defensive tackles off their feet for one series, you could do that type of situation. You have JT, you have Jack, and then you have 2 defensive ends and Ty Hamilton, and then you can just rotate that guy. Or you could have defensive tackles and rest the defensive ends. There's just so many different things that this unit can do and this defensive line can do, and I'm fascinated to see how they do it.
Yeah, Hero Kanu right now feels to me like a big piece of this team. Last year it was really a 3-man rotation at the top. Williams, Hamilton, and Mike Hall Jr. Mike Hall is the one who left off to the NFL, and you leave behind those 2 guys. But I think you've got to – we can talk about 4 and 5, and they'll always try to rotate down that far if they can. The number 3 seems kind of massive to me. And Hero Kanu was the one who started to really show some things, flash some things, was coming along late last season. If he becomes that guy, he can step up and be the – even if he's not at their level, is that next notch down, but there's some clear separation there, and just becomes a third super reliable guy that they can rotate in with those other 2. That seems really critical right now. But then even then, getting down to 4 or 5, I think when we start talking about what you were talking about with Tyleek, Stephen, like that's what could end up being really important for getting this group to the end of the season. They've had issues. Mike Hall had to play through a lot of injury things. They've had other guys come through this program at defensive tackle. And if you're not getting down to 4 or 5, then you're potentially leaving yourself vulnerable. So something we're going to be watching throughout this spring, but that's going to lead into preseason camp too. Get the text 614-350-3315 when we do get to watch practice, and we won't get to watch again for another couple weeks. At least we're not scheduled to. But whatever we're seeing and hearing on the field here at the Woody, we're texting it straight to you from cleveland.com.